What's up, man?
What's going on, my friend?
We're back at it. Doing a little more Club 409,
Gotta love the Club 409.
I think. Yeah, no, so it was fun. We kind of got ourselves, I think, in a good spot here to a good groove. We did stouts on the last one, and you kind of flipped me an idea last week and said let's do sours, and I'm all for it, man, because I think that's a love-hate style, it seems, even among the beer geeks. What do you say?
I say the beer geeks are wrong. Sours are amazing.
Yeah, and I it's weird. I think it's sours are different because they're there's there's so many subcategories. Um, I know you typically go after the fruiteds.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I like pretty much all of them. I mean, even now they're starting to come out with pastry sours. Just I just absolutely love the taste of a sour and how it just affects your mouth. Um, and if you drink too many of them, it affects your stomach because you get gut rot.
yeah, that's the other thing too. And I've always said this too, just in general about drinking sours is I can't really say acquired taste. That's kind of probably the wrong way of saying it, but you can only have so much,
Mm-hmm.
or I can only have so much of a certain one, and I have to move on or move to a different style. And I don't know if that's because of that reason where I just start feel good, or it's my palate just can't take all the sour at
Well, I
once.
could drink stouts all day. I can't drink
Yes.
sours all day.
No. And I think sours too, typically for me anyway, I tend to see them more, or at least me anyway, I tend to have them more seasonally. So spring, summer, fall. I don't drink a whole lot of sours in the wintertime, typically.
If I
Um,
have it, I'm going to drink it. That's me.
yeah. Uh, Same here, but I mean, as far as I guess more the quantity, if
Mm-hmm.
you will. Um, but the cool thing is, I know like around this region anyway, and you've gotten me several. There's some killer places knocking out some good ones. So like around here, at least I'd say regionally, Illinois, Missouri, whatever. Um, what are some of your go-tos as far as the breweries and what they're making?
Well, this one right here, side project.
I knew you were going to go that
Yeah. We were
way.
doing a sour night. I'm like, oh, got to do side project. And then I'm drinking out of my Wicked Weed beer glass. So I hit two of the biggest sour producers in the United States, at least quality wise. Um, there's definitely some other ones out there that are just knocking it out of the park, but having side projects so close, and it's nice having my couple friends in their society. So they always say, "Hey, you want this beer?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll take that, or I'll try it, or whatever it might be." And just absolutely delicious beer.
Yeah, no kidding. You've hooked me up many times over the last several years here with some just excellent stuff from side projects. So and you've even gotten me some stuff from Wicked Weed, and man, just you're not wrong. I mean, two of the best in the game for it. Um, I immediately thought of some of the stuff that we'd gotten from Trillium.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a good job. Now, more of it to me, maybe not as sour, as more fruited, but it still
Yeah,
falls
it's
under that
fruited.
style.
Mm-hmm.
And they're making some good stuff too.
Yeah.
So I've got to give it up to them.
I mean, Russian River is one of the first ones that started it. They had their supplication, consecration. They got a list of them, but they've been doing sours for a long time. Hillstead Farm does some killer sours. Um, but Wicked Weed and Side Project. Side Project was number 2 rated brewery in the United States, and I'm just so fortunate to be so close to Side Project and knowing Corey and not personally, but
Yeah.
seeing them there and knowing them, and I've had a beer with them, and it's cool.
Uh, and I think that's an important part too. Is you tend to, even if you don't know them, they don't talk to them every day.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to a brewery and you get to have that one beer with the owner or higher up or somebody that it just it personalizes it more. So immediately they kind of bring you in, and it just enhances that experience.
Yeah.
Now, luckily for them, like their beer is over the top good. But let's pretend it wasn't. Just that experience factor alone kind of kicks it up a notch. Typically, unless it's really, really bad.
Yeah, there are some really bad sours out there.
Now I got to thinking though, kind of the gateway sours that I remember anyway, the Flanders style, old school, which I guess Flanders, that dates back to.
Well, New Belgium, they've been doing sours for a while, and they've been La Folie. No, is that what La Folie? Or I don't know, but it's basically a red sour. But sours, initially started out in Belgium, and then after that, they kind of went over to Germany in the Weiss, not Weiss. What style am I thinking of? It's like a lower alcohol content sour from Germany.
Oh, the Berliner?
Berliner Weiss, yeah.
Yeah, and those are great too. So to me, the Berliners are always like, I talked about it seasonally. I always associate them with summertime. And I don't know why. Yeah. I just have this weird
just
thing with
light
them.
And refreshing. You're just out on the boat or wherever. You have one.
Yeah, that might be it.
The reason why we can't have Belgium-style beers is because they're open fermented. The United States can't do that.
Right.
Can't get the wild yeast, essentially, to ferment a beer like they do in Belgium.
Yeah, and the thing, and I'm pulling an article here from the New Yorker that states back about 10 years, but just to kind of throw a little history down, is that the commercially available Belgian sours first came to the U.S. in the 1970s. So that kind of was the groundwork for.
Was that the Cantillon?
Yes. Yeah. And that brewery was actually founded turn of the century. When I say turn of the century, I actually mean 1900. How we all should know that. But yes, it was in Brussels, and those are the ones that I think I shared a meme with you. I think it was right around the time of us thinking about doing a sour episode. So it did a few days ago. But it's like the 4 phases of Beavis, and he's sitting on the couch, and it goes through, and it's basically like I start off my life drinking light lager, and then into the hazy IPA, and then kind of into the barrel aged pastry stouts, and the last one is sitting there and I'm searching Belgian estate sales for mid-90s Cantillon and Phantoms. So it's funny because that's kind of where a lot of the, I guess, really crazy, you might be one of them, no, beer aficionados, but you've not gotten to that level, have you? Like really looking for really old Belgian sours or anything that's...
No, I mean, if I can find a Cantillon, I'm going to definitely get one. They're almost impossible to find. You either got to go to a place that's having a special release for it, and I've had it at Side Project, or buddies who have gone over to Belgium and actually gone there and brought some back. I've had both cases, and I got one once at a liquor store in Chicago that the owner was, he basically sold enough European beer where the distributor gave him a case, and we were able to get a bottle out of that case. But again, it's far and few between. It'd be like us going to the West Coast and trying to find a side project. It's like you just can't do it. You got to either know somebody, trades with somebody, or go to the source.
Yeah, exactly. No, I anytime I go, visit my buddy Brian up north, he always, tries to get me to bring some scratch stuff back, because he says even when it makes its way up there, it's gone off the shelf so fast that and because it's just one of those things. It's like you basically have to be there. It's the distribution is basically within a few counties. I mean, there's just not a whole lot going on.
One of the cool things I did when before Wicked Weed was sold to Budweiser, I went there with a couple bottles of Side Project, and I went in there and we drank Side Project bottles and Wicked Weed bottles with some of the head ups at the Wicked Weed at the Funkatorium. So they were bringing out old stuff from the back, and I was bringing out these sours because they were like, "Thank you for bringing these in. We're going to give you some special stuff."
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I brought like a fuzzy there and something else, and it was like 2 or 3 that I brought there, but they were bringing out stuff, and they were just thankful and gave us heavy pours on stuff after that. So it was great.
And I know sometimes you just kind of luck into things too. This isn't necessarily a sour story, but I know you and I have had the same experience at Little Beaver, where you just kind of happen to be at the right place, the right time. They're in the middle of canning, and they'll just hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
Because there's only a handful of people in there, and they legitimately want your feedback.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is awesome. It's like, yep, this is going to be labeled and sold here in the next couple of weeks. But you're getting to drink something that has no label on it. It's lucky if it even has a name at that point. Even though it most likely does, they just not willing to tell you.
Right.
But no, it's cool. So you kind of make those connections, and you do find your way into different things. And I got to thinking, I'd asked you the question of the sours with the regional things, as far as in this area, and you mentioned Side Project, and one that's kind of to the masses too, that is distributed pretty well, and they have the Wild Sour series is Distill. And not everything's great, but they've made some killer ones too. Key Lime Pie comes
it's always
to mind.
consistent.
Yes,
you're not going to have a bad one, and it's perfect golf course beer. You're like, you know what? I'll just grab 6-pack, and I know I'm good.
And that's as I guess the kids say, crushable. But that is an easy. You could pull a 6-pack and drink that no problem.
Yeah,
because it's not overbearing on the sour, but it still fits the profile.
Except that pickle one we had at Distill, that was awful.
Yeah, well, sometimes
or something like that.
Yeah, look, sometimes it's just a miss. And think of the other ones too. The kind of made me think of it in the style wise, anyway. But
but now I've also had a pickle sour from Mars, and I absolutely love it.
So now, what would be your? Obviously, I know why the Distill one wasn't good. I've had that one, but why did you like the Mars one? The curiosity.
Well, I like pickles. I like kosher pickles, and it tasted like sour pickle juice. I know it sounds. If you like drinking it, it tasted similar to that. And it had a little spice. If you drink it cold, it was sour pickle. You let it warm up, and it brought out some of that heat, and it just changed. Nice. So that was kind of unique, and that's what I was hoping that beer was, and it definitely was not that beer at all.
I think drank. I had something similar from Epicurean, where they had a little bit of the spice on the back end of the pickle.
Yeah,
and it kind of completed and I can't remember if it was like excellent off the top of my head, but I do remember it being more full, more of a complete beer. Now that one from Distill, I looked it up. That was the dill pickle sour beer, and I guess they call it Sucker Punch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm notorious for rating things. I didn't even rate it.
Yeah, if I didn't rate it, it's awful.
Yeah,
I'm sure I probably was the same, or got a 1 maybe.
Right.
But the beer I'm talking about from Mars, it's called Dillerweiss, and I was playing with my buddy one night, and I had 4 or 5 of them. I kept going Dillerweiss, just being stupid, drinking some beer.
I was going through Untapped, and I made the joke of the kind of your gateway, and the first sour I checked in happened to be a Flanders. Go figure. That was over 10 years ago. Obviously, that wasn't the first sour beer I ever had, but that makes sense based on the way how I was back then. But it actually pulled one that reminded me of something I did not like, and I don't know if you remember this one. It's been time and time again, but Dogfish made the Festina Peche peach beer.
Yeah,
I don't like that one at all.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's nothing outstanding, but it's there.
It's one of the few times, and I don't know if it was, and I've had it a couple of different times, and I don't know if it was just poor quality or just something that I just did not dig on the flavor, but it literally tasted like acid reflux.
Yeah, there are definitely some that definitely do that.
Yeah, did not care for that, and so I remember that one just not being a favorite. But then kind of going back through, a lot of the Berliners, like that you had mentioned, as far as that style before. Uniani.
Oh yeah, that's a great little brewery. They actually have two breweries in one. They have a stout side, and then a stout and IPA side, and then the sour side, because you can't brew the sours in the same area because then everything's going to get infected.
Yeah, right. Cross contamination and all that
Yeah.
fun stuff. And now the IPA side is Hubbard's Cave, isn't it?
Yes, Hubbard's Cave.
Okay.
And both of them are outstanding. My buddy lives near there, and he brings me stuff down when he comes here. And I've been to Uni, whatever, a couple times.
Yeah, that's one thing I think we should probably mention this. Both you and I are probably going to butcher names here.
Oh,
I don't have any idea how things are pronounced half the time, especially with some of the beer, names and breweries. So, if you actually are a connoisseur and or beer geek, beer nut, whatever, please don't call us out on how we say things.
Yeah, we know we're butchering shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But you get the idea. You know what we're drinking.
Exactly. We drink the good stuff.
Yeah.
Man. But I was going through and looking at some of the ones you had gotten me. Medora from Wicked Weed is excellent. But then another brewery I was thinking of, Narrow Gauge. You had got me some fruited stuff from there, and and it's funny because even though live in this area, you have a lot better chance of getting good stuff based on your proximity to
St. Louis.
Yeah, exactly, and the good breweries, and even Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going home, I get some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. I'm not saying that sour beer is a regional thing by any stretch, but it's typically, to me anyway, done by your more put together breweries, ones that have been there for a while, ones that are actually going out, or they're like side project is a good example. It's they started with something else and then kind of moved over to, hence the name.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm looking here on Untapped. My first sour was from New Belgium, La Folie. It's a sour eau de Brune, which sour red. Wow.
So Flanders, that was another game.
First checking. And then after that, I had a lot from the brewery. Like Tart of Darkness, different things along that line.
Now, one I was thinking of earlier, as I was trying to kind of cull through my brain on different ones that I've had that I really liked, but Lagunitas with the Black Swan.
Oh yeah.
So you have this like subset of dark sours, which are incredibly hard to come by. Not a lot of places make them.
Right.
And then I don't even know, does Lagunitas even still make that one anymore?
They might at their tap house, but I haven't seen it out in a while.
I neither. That's one of my favorite beers, especially for like, I'd say favorites in the sense of like, to me, big beers. Yeah, man, I love that one. I just love that style.
Right. Being in Chicago, I would go to Wisconsin and get a lot of New Glarus stuff. And, I've since been to that brewery, and I've drank so many of the different styles of beers. Some of them are more fruited than sour, but just really good flavors. And of course, they only distribute in Wisconsin, so if you want to get them, you got to get them there. And yes, I do not like Spotted Cow.
Gee, why not?
Their other stuff is really, really good. Spotted Cow could suck my a-hole.
I've had Spotted Cow. It's all right. Not anything I'm going to go out of my way for.
No,
I've had several.
That or a Bud Light is pretty obvious.
I've had several New Glarus things. Actually, a coworker that would bring me back some New Glarus stuff because he was from up that area. Right when I first started really getting into trying a bunch of different things. So it was kind of cool. Nice little hookup I had there. And I've gotten some from you, and I've gotten some from Brian over the years. And because, he's hop, skipping, and jump from the border. So,
yeah.
But now it's that brewery all together is solid. I don't have anything bad to say about it, but they do have good. From the little bit I've had anyway, they do good sour. So, which isn't surprising because most everything else they do is pretty solid.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, going through some of my notes that I had, but and this is probably going to sound whatever it is, but Toppling Goliath has done some good ones in their the Fandango series.
Oh yeah, the cherry Fandango is my favorite.
Yeah, that's an excellent one. I like the dragon fruit one.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome. I'm a big sucker for dragon fruit anyway, so.
Yeah. And homeless.
Oh yeah, we all know that.
Yeah.
But not as we mentioned. Oh yeah, the strawberry shortcake one that was excellent too.
Definitely.
Pair 21. I just came across New Glarus one. That was a Berliner. Energy City. We haven't said anything about Energy City, and I don't know when
those are more of your dessert sours.
Yeah, and again, some of these breweries that we're going to talk about as we go through some of these episodes, especially when we focus on a style. Look, I don't know that we've mentioned Energy City again anywhere else, because a lot of their stuff,
IPAs yet.
right. But even then, it's like even when we get to a show where we do talk about IPAs, or think about how many more breweries are out there that you've had of IPAs compared to sours.
Oh god,
you know what I mean? So I don't know that Energy City makes
probably 1,000.
Right. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I always like to kind of think about things like that. It's like, but they make an actually, you're right, dessert sour style.
Another nice one out of Colorado's Almanac. They do a good series, and we used to get those small bottles all the time with different fruits. And that was probably 5-6 years ago, but they kind of just stopped in our area, which is unfortunate. But when I was out in Colorado, I actually got to try another one, so it was nice.
Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate things. If this is one of those things that for whatever reason, if we catch a listener who's just thinking about trying different stuff, trying different beers for whatever reason, that unfortunately it's one of those things where distribution tends to change. So where you got things
year too.
Right. And then you have things now where certain breweries are making things year round, whereas before that wasn't the case. And then, like I said, distribution changes, and that's no fun either, because there's things that you and I would get 5-10 years ago that I don't see anymore. And we just mentioned Black Swan. That's a perfect example. I don't,
Which one?
Black Swan.
Oh, Black Swan. Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
No.
So. Trying to go through some of these other ones. Triptych has made some good sours over the years. Nothing crazy. I certainly would not put them on the level.
Necessarily barrel aged, amazing. You could tell they're
right, and some of them are probably the wrong way to phrase this. Not the artificial flavoring, maybe instead of the real one. But no, they did this one. The Tart series was pretty good. Again, not the level of a side project or anything like that, but they've done some good ones.
Have you ever had Westbrook Goose or Goza, however you pronounce it?
Yeah, actually, I was dude, that's so weird. You said that. Are you logged into my phone?
Yes.
I just scrolled down to a lemon cucumber Goza from Westbrook.
That's a really solid beer. Just nice day drinking. Good flavor, not going to knock your socks off, not going to be super over sour, but just a quality beer that you could just enjoy, 5 of them and then be done for the day.
That had to be one I got from you.
Yes.
Where's Westbrook?
Was it the key lime?
No, this was lemon cucumber.
Okay. Yeah, I've had the key lime, I've had the regular, I've had the lime. They're out of South Carolina.
South Carolina, that's right. Noon Whistle has done they're Fuzzy Smack.
Oh yeah, the Fuzzies series is always good. Perennial used to do some good sours, and then the owner left, or the guy that was making them left it and went to
so they switched to all well,
back to Corey.
Yep. Actually, I just came across one that I remember having, and I distinctly remember this because it was a little trip we took in 2020 down to Biloxi, Mississippi,
Mhm.
and I got my hands on some Parish Brewing Company,
Oh, Parish, good stuff.
and it was the Greetings from Grand Isle, and I had it on draft first. And I think it was one of those things where, like I said, you have the experience that tends to kick things up a notch.
Mhm.
And that was the time where, we were all kind of, told to stay home for, a month at a time, and COVID crap happening. And I mean, I said none of that. I traveled in the summer as much as I could. I took 2 trips in the summertime, and this was like my 3rd trip to the beach. It was like Labor Day weekend. And so, but this is one of the first times I can really remember sitting down like at a restaurant and eating out, because it was open,
Mhm.
and they had that beer. And man, and let me tell you, that did not taste to me. Yeah, it was a sour beer, but it had such an excellent flavor to me, because that was like that extra experience of I'm out again, able to enjoy things in public.
Right, right.
Because prior to that, the last beer I probably had on draft was with you 6 months prior to that, when everything went shut down. So,
Right, exactly.
So I think sometimes that experience does kind of lend into, how you perceive things.
Mhm.
But again, they do good stuff.
Right. Have you ever had any of the sours from oh shoot, the one in Three Floyds?
I'm trying to think. I've had plenty of Three Floyd stuff over the years, but I'm not sure
They
what
have
you
one
know.
that's called Pear Bear, like Pear, and it is just absolutely phenomenal beer.
I don't think I've had that one. I've
They do some good singular stuff here or there.
I've had a bunch of their stuff over the years, but I've not had that one.
Mm-hmm. Another time when I was out in Portland, I went to Cascade Brewing, and they do some really high sour, high alcohol content stuff.
Cascade. Yeah, I've heard of Cascade, obviously the hops, but the brewery, I don't know that I've ever had anything from Cascade. Let's check that out. I'm curious now. So that's a fun thing. We've talked about this on here already. Yeah, I've had a couple things from Cascade. Let's see. Well, let's see here. I love the professional. Like, hey, I was so prepared for this.
Oh yeah, I took notes all day today.
Yeah. Oh hell, I don't know. I can't get it to pull up. But yeah, I've had a couple things from Cascade. I don't remember having any sours though.
Mm-hmm. Other ones that do really good sours, Funky Buddha, Cigar City. There's even some from that 420 brewery in Atlanta. What was that one?
Sweetwater.
Sweetwater, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Sweetwater's not going to knock your socks off, but they make just nice stuff in a can, good for what it is.
And the other thing too, I think we should probably mention this, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit. But the how are sour beers sour? The wort's made without any hops, and it's boiled, and I'm talking generally speaking. I'm not talking about all of them necessarily, because we can have a little discussion here toward the end about sour IPAs and so that sort of thing. But then after the boil, it's cooled, and then they add a lactobacillus, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which that's what turns the sugar into lactic acid, and hence makes it sour. So that's
also makes it a bubble on the outside, and you don't want to break that bubble, because you break that bubble, then you're moving the beer around and you're moving the culture, and it's not going to be good.
Right, and again, I'm just kind of speaking in generalities here, but that's really your main process. We're typically, beer in general, if you're talking about an IPA or whatever, during the boil you throw hops. You can always throw hops while it's fermenting. There's all sorts of things. We'll talk about this on future episodes of dry hopping and whatever. But the sour beer technically or typically is just without hops, and then it's introduced with the lactobacillus, and voila, you have your sour beer.
4 to 6 months later.
Right. Yeah. There is a
or longer.
Right. Yeah. There's a longer timetable there, where, a lot of fermentations, especially if you're home brewing, you would, um, be in a kind of a 2 to 4 week window, really. I always say that 2 weeks to ferment and 2 more weeks to carbonate if you're, bottle carboning or whatever you're doing.
And that's one of the things why sours, like good sours, they cost more because they're taking up space and they're taking up time.
Right.
And if you're taking up those two things, you got to pay for the product. Plus, they're putting in good stuff into those barrels.
And I think you made a great point there, and something we've not hit on, and we probably should kind of give this some justice. You just said taking up time, taking up space. And I think that's what kind of turns a lot of people off whenever they're like, oh, I see this $25 bottle, which, is 6% alcohol, we'll say. And the bottle is like the size of a wine bottle, roughly, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, why am I paying that much money for something that, well, it's because it took 12 months to get there.
Yeah.
And it either, it sat in a barrel or it sat in a fermenter or it sat wherever. That part of
food or whatever it might be.
Right. Yeah. That part's just not appreciated at all. It's like, it takes a long time sometimes to get this stuff. So there's rationale why. The other thing too that we really haven't mentioned is Brett. As far as the wild Brett yeast that's kind of added to certain beers, with things, and again, Brett to me is more subtle on the sour.
Yeah, it's kind of almost more dirty and funky.
Right.
Not nearly like a saison, but it has a unique definitely taste to things.
Right. Yeah, and I never think of that stuff with whenever in the sour realm necessarily, but it does kind of fit that. And that's the other thing too, is like we're going to end up crossing things at certain points because then you get into like wild ales, and you could start talking about that in kind of a similar sense. But as far as a pure sour, maybe not really.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some similar things there. So, but no, is there any other sour, like, breweries or beers or anything that kind of really jumps out at you?
I know I mentioned this before, but if you ever get a chance to get any Russian River stuff, it's going to come in small bottles and it's going to be hard to find, but they're really good stuff. They have a line of probably 6 different ones. They all have the cork top. And actually, speaking of tops, a lot of the new sours have pressurized caps instead of having cork bottles in them. So it's just kind of a new thing as well, too, how the beer industry keeps revolutionizing. Brewery does killer stuff. Hillstead Farm, if you can get any of that stuff, that's absolutely amazing as well. And that's up in Vermont.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, if you're thinking of like diving into sour, it's a taste thing. So, if you really like a real sour lemonade or a candy or whatever, then go big.
When I tell people if they've never had one, do you like Sour Patch Kids? And if they say yes, I'm like, all right, try it. Or if they say no, then I'm not even going to bother.
Exactly, and that's a great point. Like, it's, if you like a lemonade or whatever, okay, maybe we can steer you into a really light one.
Yeah.
Maybe something that's a little more than a shandy,
Yeah.
Maybe more of a goza type thing. But if you're all the way with it, then, we could slap you in the face with whatever. Because at that point, if you really like sour stuff, then you should really dig a sour beer.
Right.
But even if you're into it, you're not going to be able to drink more than, 1 or 2 at a sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move on.
Unless you're, doing a tasting and you got 5 or 6 small samples, that's no big deal.
Right. No. I'm talking like 1 or 2 draft pours or whatever.
Yeah, if you had 2 of these bottles together, no, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's definitely a style. It's not for everybody.
No.
I certainly appreciate all the stuff you've given me over the years, and I certainly am very appreciative of the style too. You know, as someone I've brewed on and off for several years, I've never made anything sour, at least on purpose.
Yeah,
So
it happens.
yeah, and I think that's another thing that we should need to talk about is like home brewing or just brewing in general. Sometimes you get funky bacteria that's introduced into you're just trying to make it an amber, or just trying to make an ale or whatever type. Obviously, not trying for anything sour. Well, you get a funky bacteria in there. Oops.
Yeah. Some of your stuff wasn't completely clean or whatever.
Right. It does not take much because that stuff multiplies so fast.
Yeah. Didn't have a high enough temperature on the water or whatever it might be. Yeah, you can really do some damage real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have one of those bottles when you open it, and it just starts to immediately foam up like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like a stout. And if it foams up like crazy, it was infected with something. And sometimes an infected stout is okay. It gives it that unique flavor. I've tried them. Don't always necessarily drink them fully, but I've definitely had infected sours that are good.
Right, and I think we should probably say that too. It's not going to hurt you.
No.
Generally speaking, that it still goes through the same processes. It's still clean. It still has to go through. It just so happens like during some part of it that it got infected with whatever. And it's not going to hurt you. I mean, I've drank infected stuff. I've seen infected whatever. I'm still here.
Yeah.
I can't say it was my favorite,
right.
because that's the other thing too. It certainly tempers your expectation. Like I want to drink a stout, and then all of a sudden I get this like really funky, note on it. It's like, I don't know. And then it's like, I always like to coin your term of a drain pour.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember what beer it was, but I first had this one random stout from this brewery, and I really liked the flavor of it. And then found out later, I don't remember which one, was 18th Street Brewing, and up in Hammond, Indiana. And I got a beer from them. I don't remember the exact name, but I drank it, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of different for a stout. Well, I didn't know at the time it was infected. So later again, I saw that same beer, and I'm like, cool, I'll pick it up. I like it. I tried it. I'm like, this stout sucks. It was better infected than it was
really
as a stout. Yeah.
Wow. So, I can say this: one of the first times I brewed on a larger scale for home brewing, it was like one of the first times I got to work on the Brew Magic system, and I was just shooting for something regular. I was going for an amber ale, nothing crazy. It was a recipe that I had already made, and it turned out pretty well a couple times prior. So basically, what I was doing, I was looking to try to do something consistent at that point, and did everything same grains, everything, the temperature of the water, the same water. I mean, everything. And after the fermentation was done, it was, wow, this tastes like Bud Light lime. It's really good. And it was like, that's not what it's supposed to taste like. But of course, people drank it up. I thought it was awesome. And I'm like, and I just kept beating myself up. I'm like, what went wrong? That's the only thing I could figure was like at some point, something got in it and just gave it that little bit of edge. And, soured it, not bad, but enough to where it was like, this is not an amber, guys. No. So you got any closing notes on sours and any thoughts on what we want to do for our next Club 409?
One last shout out to two more breweries in our area that are just doing really good stuff is White Rooster.
Yes.
They got a good program. And then Scratch. I mean, I know you mentioned them earlier, but Scratch does some amazing things with the Wild series. Just, a guy end up with a bucket out in the woods just foraging for shit and just makes incredible beers.
Yeah, and the Oyster Vise. I know that's award-winning beer. I think they've taken some medals from GABF just on that one alone.
Right.
So this was cool. It's just, it's in your backyard, not too far from me, but
right.
I don't have any ideas for the next one. So we'll have to, I don't know if we could tease anything out. You want to do another style or maybe focus on a brewery or two, or
We can even focus on a country or two too.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Well, probably should be avoid the United States.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not talking about the United States.
We probably also just like, yeah, let's talk about the beers of Madagascar.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, now I
The
like
beers
that.
of Thailand, they got a lot of bananas in them.